How's everybody doing? All right, I guess you can hear me. I see heads nodding. So thank you for coming out tonight. We don't have a youngin tonight, so I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we will call the roll.
Matthews. Ingalls. Here. Flood.
Here.
Holt.
Here.
Rutherford.
Here.
Seahorn.
Here.
Richter.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. And Travis is going to do our invocation tonight.
Father God, thank you for just another beautiful day, God, to be working towards the things that matter in this city. God, thank you for the amazing individuals that have devoted their life to creating a place not just for their families, but for all the families in Shawnee. God, I pray that tonight is all about the business that you would have it be. God, thank you for the individuals that serve on this commission, God, and I just pray that you continue to bless them. This all this through God, through your Son's name. Amen.
Thank you, sir. You'll join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first up is citizen participation. Same rules as always, 3 minutes per person, 12 minutes per subject. Our city attorney will keep time for us. So first up is Jack Huffer. So Mr. Huffer, the microphone's all yours. How are you, sir?
Is this on? Or?
It should be. You just move it however works best for you.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Mayor, council members, commissioners, and everyone here this evening. I apologize in advance for any lack in decorum. This is not intentional, as this is my first presentation to any city council. My name is Jack Huffer, and I would like to take my time to try to continue the conversation and hopefully expedite actions on the part of Shawnee's leaders, including yourselves and ordinary citizens of Shawnee who are not part of the board or any council. Other mayors and commissioners in the past have seemed to want to hide their light under a bushel, to turn a blind eye to those in need of our society, in our society. This is most contrary to the Word of God and represents a massive failure to follow what we are commanded to do. Notice we're not requested, but commanded. In this, there is no ambiguity, and in feeding, clothing, and in sheltering those most in need is what we must pay attention to. I believe most people want to do the right thing. They want to do the right thing. We don't always know what to do, but if people truly were doing the right thing, then those in need in our community would have food, clothing, shelter, and anything else needed. But, Honorable Mayor, this is not the case. So I will read passages to help us understand our commitment to the homeless and to obey that's what we are commanded. 1 John 3:17 through 18. How does God's love abide in anyone who has the world's goods and sees a brother or sister in need and yet refuses to help? Children, let us love, not in word or speech, but in truth and action. In Matthew 5:42, Jesus tells us to give to everyone who asks from you, and do not refuse anyone who wants to borrow from you. In James 2:14 through 17, what good is it, my brothers and sisters, to say you have faith, but you have no works? Can faith save you? If a brother or sister is naked and lacks daily food, and one of you says, "Go in peace, keep warm, eat your fill," yet do not supply their bodily needs, what is the good of that? So faith without works is dead. Isaiah 58, 10 through 12. If you offer your food to the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted, then your light will rise in the darkness, and your gloom shall be bright like the noonday. The Lord will guide you continually, and you shall be like a watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail.
Mr. Huffer, hate to interrupt you, but your 3 minutes is up.
Just to finish the last sentence, please.
Just finish that sentence, please.
Okay. You shall be called the repairer and the breach of the restorer of the streets to live in. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Okay, next up is Wolf Googler. How are you, Wolf?
I'd just like to yield my time to Rob Morris.
All righty, very good. So, Mr. Morris, you are up, sir.
Okay, I wasn't bluffing, and I asked several times, so let's dig right in. I will be reading what I know of, and that should be in your financial reports. I will also be reading some of your conflicts that you have voted on. Almost all of the info is publicly available information. The rest is more what I know and can also prove, not things necessarily available on a website to view. Start at the top. Ward 1, for the financial disclosures. Filed twice, but you filed them both in the same year, not the way you were supposed to by law. When you look up things, Matthew Rental Properties, is that a part of you? Is it not? If it is, then could you explain the registration? Your spouse, what do they do, if it's applicable? Did your status with Family of Faith and BOK change? In 20 and 21, it's in your financial disclosure, but it's not in 22. Ward 2, never filed a financial disclosure at all. Spouse works at the hospital, so why isn't that included? Heirloom Flooring makes $96,000 a year and is registered to a private residence not belonging to the commissioner, and also has 4 employees at a residence but runs a commercial business.
Mr. Morris,
That's not, no.
you're supposed to be directing it to as a whole, not to individuals.
And I am following what I'm supposed to. I'm reading off from ward to ward.
Ask
I have
our
not.
attorney.
No.
This needs to be given to everyone to address your concerns. Let's not attack any particular issue.
I'm going through the entire commission. I'm doing exactly what I was supposed to do. I'm not attacking one commissioner in any way, shape, or form. I'm addressing all 7, and if I need to, I'll address the mayor or speak to the body as a whole as it tells me to.
Address
Thank
me.
you. So, Ward 2, Heirloom Flooring. Now we have Ward 2, Shawnee Outlook Magazine. Most people don't know who owns it, and Community Renewal is Community Renewal paying for their articles? So if you were to vote no on any Community Renewal issue, they could pull articles from the paper, which means you lose money. Leaning Tree Homes started during the pandemic. 106 East Main, 1928 North Bell, 221 East 9th, 420 East Main, 704 North Broadway, vacant lot on Midland, 1017 North Pottinger, 12 Apache, 1827 North Park, 28 East Georgia, 413 Midland, 1106 East Fay, and a vacant lot also on East Fay. The Dewey Street water main, 704 Broadway, which is one of yours, that is on the corner of Dewey and Broadway. You made the motion to vote for that on a money-making property of yours. That's against the law. Let's see, Pogo. You own the property, so, I mean, if you vote no on anything and Pogo doesn't exist anymore, your rent doesn't get paid anymore. So who pays the rent for Pogo? We know who paid for Blue Zones. It was ShareCare. Theopolis should be on your financial report, even though you don't own the property, just the business itself. How did you need $50,000 in PPP loans from Uncle Sam but had $2 million to invest? Shawnee Forward shouldn't be on that board. That is a conflict of interest because of the non-disclosure agreements where you get to have insider information before anyone else and how to invest in. Ward 3 filed a financial disclosure once. Looks to be correct, but you can't work on another commissioner's money-making establishment. That's a direct benefit to the commissioner. Please address that in regards to any work you've done at 420 East Main. Ward 4, Living Trust, 3 properties. FGR Properties, LLC, about 6 properties. Fred's Tire and Battery, that's where you work, that should be on there. Maybe the Expo proclivities, you shouldn't have been voting on things out there that has anything to do with that, considering you're on the contract review committee for it. Ward 5, never filed. Coronado Terrace, Bryan, Harrison, Minnesota, Airport Drive, Independence, Air Street, Kickapoo Spur, MacArthur, and Harrison. Spouse, if their job is applicable, or if they have a job, no problem if they don't. Ward 6, looks to be correct in full. Mayor, filed once. You used to own 420 East Main that I know of. I couldn't really find anything else. And it was a problem when Blue Zones was there because if you didn't vote to keep Blue Zones doing things in Shawnee, ShareCare wouldn't pay their rent anymore. The same thing applies with Pogo. Drone videos. Are your drone videos being used in any way to market yourself to be sold? Or do you have a contract with the city to do drone videos? edboltphoto.com, is that still around, Mr. Mayor? Your art at Visit Shawnee, so the mayor gets free marketing. Anyone in the general public could have art displayed at Visit Shawnee, except the 7 of you, because you can't benefit directly or indirectly from anything, especially not from the city itself. Your spouse and a family conflict with community renewal, and I don't like having to say that one. Finally, what boards are you on? Committees? How about spouses? If your spouse is on Board X and Board X appears in front of the commission asking or wanting to do anything, then you have to abstain. By all of a sudden, and it's funny, the other day I asked a question if the financial disclosures would be done, to which the very next day I got 4 years of back financials from one commissioner, which proved my entire point that y'all have never done these, so we don't know what your conflicts of interest are. Thank you for proving that, and you kind of threw everybody else under the bus, but I guess you weren't thinking about that. Homeless Resource Center. Why isn't the coordinator at the Homeless Resource Center Monday through Friday for 4 hours and then at City Hall doing admin for 4 hours? Now the Homeless Resource Center is open 5 days a week right there.
Your time is up.
It sure is. Thank you.
All righty, next up is Rick Young. How are you tonight, Mr. Young?
Good. Sometime I think I may have changed my schedule of arrival. Before we talk down on some of the important issues of the evening, I would like to say this first to everybody that's in the chambers. How about a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, everybody that's here. Happy Hanukkah to those that ceremony. And Happy Kwanzaa for those people that celebrate Kwanzaa. I do want to thank everybody for what has happened. This is a whole year that we've been involved in some wrangling. Politics is tough, and do understand that. Appreciate it. So for city staff, city employees, all the Shawnee stakeholders, I want to say thank you. The Shawnee America is still rising, no matter what comes, what goes. We have all types of different adversities that we're faced with, but we're still moving forward. Now, as the clock slowly ticks off, still looking for a motion to schedule a charter change in our way that our commissioners are voted for in the city of Shawnee. Some of this is alluding to what Rob just got finished talking about, and we know that because we've been here any length of time, we understand how our city runs, and we do some things well, and there's some things we're still challenged with. Like we do governors in the governor's mansion very well. Drawing straight lines on Kickapoo Street, difficulty. But let me just say this. There are some citizens in our community, because of the way that we have not true representative government structured in our municipality, that are disenfranchised with the voting. And we have some people looking at that, and like I said, I'm a Shawnee guy, I've been here 60 of my 64 years, and I know to empower the citizens, and I know some think that the citizens are not smart enough to grasp everything, and that could be true, but we cannot disenfranchise them of their given right in our Constitution, and in our cities, and in our government. So let me end with this. I want to thank you. I want to bless God for the opportunity that we have. I wish you and your families great holidays, so Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I want to say this also, shop local, shop Shawnee, enjoy local. Shawnee Miracle Rising 2023. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Dave McDonald. How are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty well. I didn't really want to be here. I don't like the fact that I have to be here. I actually was hoping to get an opportunity to address the city manager, but I guess she's not at this meeting.
No, she is. She's standing right here. She'll
Is that
hear
you?
you.
Oh, excellent.
She'll hear
Okay.
everything you say.
You know who I am. All right. Happy holidays to everybody. I hope everything's going smooth. I don't like this topic. It's very hard for me to discuss, but I'm going to discuss it, and hopefully I don't get nervous about it. So I would like to address an issue that I believe affects our entire community: the conduct of the officers on the Shawnee Police Department. While I am certain that there are a significant amount of well-trained, well-respected, and well-serving members of the force, there are also a number of officers currently serving on the Shawnee Police Force that seem to believe their judgment of issues and how they conduct themselves while serving our community is of no great concern to you, or any of you, and especially you. Since I first submitted a complaint about the conduct of 4 officers back on October 4th, I have received nothing but the brush off from the chief of our fine police force. And also, your office. 4 times I contacted your office. And I was told by Kelly that you would contact me back and address this issue. Apparently you haven't done that, or I wouldn't be here. So I'm still waiting to schedule a meeting with you to discuss the conduct of officers on our force.
Mr. McDonald, at this time, you need to address the commission, please.
I would like to discuss it with everybody here. You're welcome to attend the meeting. But my question is, what are you as a city council going to do to bring to light my issues with the conduct of the officers of our police force? Some of them. And also, what are you going to do about the methods of interaction between the officers and the public they serve? I think maybe there should be a citizen and a police commission, maybe 2 of each, to address issues of officers' conduct only. Just officers' conduct. Because I'm sure none of you want your mother's best friend to be accosted the way I saw 4 officers accost a little old lady. Okay?
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, that's our last speaker. Item 2 is consider approval of consent agenda. Anybody like to pull anything from the consent agenda? If not, we'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
And Mark. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve item 2. We'll call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 3, presentation of Pet of the Week, Animal Control, and I believe we have a dog out there.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good, how are you? So
Doing
we
well.
have Luke. He's approximately 2-year-old cur mix. He's been neutered and he's ready to go home and he wants a home for the holidays. He gets along with other animals and all kinds of children. We've had him out in the community, walking him up and down, and he's done great. So some stats on the shelter. We have 24 kennels, and we have like 30 dogs. And all but 5 of them are available right now for adoption, and we are waiving the adoption fees just to get them homes. Do y'all have any questions about the shelter or how it's being run?
No, I think we're good. Thank you so much.
All right,
Seems
thank
like
you.
a nice dog. All right, item 4 is consideration of an agreement between Red Rock Behavioral Health, RRBH, and the City of Shawnee Police Department to embed RRBH staff in Shawnee Police Crisis Intervention Team. And Chief Wilson's up. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. So I bring some good news tonight, and that is the fact that the Shawnee Police Department is very excited for our police department and for the city that we were awarded a CIT grant, which is Crisis Intervention Team. And with a lot of emphasis right now concerning mental health crisis, and the likelihood that an officer is going to be probably one of the first people to interact with someone with a mental health crisis. This is very important to us. The City of Shawnee Police Department was awarded a Crisis Intervention Team, CIT grant, in the amount of $347,000. In general, the Crisis Intervention Team approach is to increase the collaboration among all service providers with a goal of reducing homelessness and treating coexisting mental health needs. In order to maximize the efficiency of the CIT approach, the agreement between Red Rock Behavioral Health and the City of Shawnee Police Department would allow for the embedding of licensed mental health professionals for the purpose of conducting assessments for crisis, intervention, and diversion. The services provided by embedded Red Rock Behavioral Health staff would be funded through the city's CIT grant. The grant is for $347,000, as I mentioned, and it would be available to us through August 31st, 2024. $187,000 of the grant is available for services provided by licensed mental health professionals. $120,000 of the grant would be used for officer overtime, and $40,000 is designated for officer and staff training. Shawnee Police Department officers would respond to mental health calls and conduct welfare checks on homeless persons, and as appropriate, make referrals to partner entities from Red Rock Behavioral Health, the City of Shawnee Homeless Program, Gateway for Prevention and Recovery, and the Salvation Army, among many others. The funding designated for training would be used to provide crisis intervention education to all police department staff and other city employees as needed. So currently we probably have about a dozen officers that are trained in CIT or crisis intervention. With this grant, our goal is to have every sworn officer and every civilian employee trained in crisis intervention. And so we're here before you tonight to look at the agreement between the Shawnee Police Department and Red Rock Behavioral Health and receive your approval if you so see, and we recommend approval. It's been looked over by the city attorney's office, and they've inspected it and sent it back with a thumbs up. So I will leave it to you if you have any questions.
Any questions for the chief? Someone asked me the other day how many officers we have.
We have 74 sworn positions. Not all of those are filled right now, but we're getting close to it.
When would this be implemented if we approve tonight? Immediately, the training?
Yes, we've already, because of the award, we've already implemented everything but the embedding of the Red Rock staff.
Okay.
So this would give us access for them to actually not only ride with officers and interact at times, but immediate access to them if officers encounter the need to contact them. We also have been working with the Department of Mental Health, and every officer now has an iPad through the Department of Mental Health where they can actually, if they come in contact with someone who needs mental health services, they can contact them just through the iPad right there on the scene.
Very cool.
I know that's one of the things that, after having conversations with some of your officers and some of their shift leaders and everything, one of the biggest struggles is highly trained and as efficient and amazing as your officers are. Often in a mental health crisis, they're not trained for that, and knowing that some of the unfortunate situations that come from that when somebody in mental health crisis and an officer asking them to comply and they're not, and understanding that this is one of the main reasons that things go south in those situations is because of just lack of training, you know, and then understanding that the options for the officer are it's huge to have somebody come in and help you to de-escalate and then not only de-escalate but get that individual the much needed help, you know, in that situation versus you know, some of the limited options that we would have in the past. And so thank you for working on this. Thank your team for being willing to accept this and do this, because it's extra work, but it definitely is going to make a difference, I believe, in a lot of families' lives. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? If not, we'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'll second.
Thank you so much. We have a motion and a second for approval of item 4. We'll call the question. And motion passes 7-0. Item 5 is consideration of memorandum of understanding between Oklahoma Department of Human Services, OKDHS, and the City of Shawnee to embed OKDHS staff at the Homeless Resource Center. And Mr. Harkins, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Mr. Mayor. Commissioners, Ryan Harkins, Community Development Director. As stated, this is an MOU with the Oklahoma Department of Human Services to allow their staff to embed 1 day a week at the Homeless Resource Center. This gives them an opportunity to provide direct access and services to the homeless community in a confidential manner rather than trying to pick up clients and meet them here, there, and everywhere else. DHS staff approached city staff a couple of months ago and has slowly been walking through the agreement on their end and getting all of the I's and T's taken care of to get us to this point. But they're excited. They will have office space that they can use at the resource center to provide confidential counseling and access to services to the homeless community there. You will note if you're looking through the agreement, the addendum in the agreement talks about that this is not a public access site, it's a private one. That is because they are focused just on providing services to the homeless community and not the general public. That's the difference in the agreement and in the categories as how they define them. Staff has reviewed the item. We recommend approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? I think this is a good step. Definitely a step in the right direction. How about a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Mark and Darren. Okay, we have motion and a second for approval of item 5. We'll call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 6, consideration of an agreement with GH2 Architects LLC for for architectural services for the Santa Fe Depot. Mr. Harkins, you are up again, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an agreement with GH2 Architects, and you may recognize that name from a couple of years ago. They did the building envelope study that the city commissioned for the depot that looked at the roof condition, that looked at the exterior brickwork, windows, things like that. That was a long document that the city manager in the December 6th, 2021 study session walked through with you, among other pieces of information in that study session. The purpose of this contract is to take the preliminary design that they did in those construction documents and update them, walk them through the review process with the State Historic Preservation Office, and get the documents to a complete bid stage. It also provides for construction administration services. This would get us to a point where we could take the roof project and exterior rehab out for construction bidding. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that go along with this professional services agreement.
Any questions? If not, we sure accept a motion.
Move to approve item 6.
Thank
I'll
you,
second.
sir. Daniel and Cammy. All righty. We have a motion and a second for approval of item 6. We'll call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 7, consideration of resolution of the City of Shawnee setting forth a capital improvement plan policy. And Ms. McNabb Fox is up. How are you, ma'am?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Great.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. This evening I'm presenting a resolution to approve a capital improvement plan policy. This policy was developed in coordination with the City Manager's Office, Engineering Office, Public Works Department, and Finance. And we wanted to develop this policy to ensure that the capital planning process is transparent to the public and city commissioners and all stakeholders. This policy sets forth general parameters to guide our decisions on long-term capital planning and will assist in developing the city's capital improvement plan, or CIP. The CIP will be a 5-year plan and will be used in developing the capital portion of the annual budget. The goals of the CIP are to consistently make decisions related to the capital improvement aligned with overall city goals and objectives regarding the physical and economic development of the community, asset management, and the provision of public services. It also promotes financial stability and focuses attention on the city's long-term financial capacity to meet capital needs. And we also want to effectively communicate the city's priorities and plans for undertaking capital projects to all stakeholders. The policy that's in the item today outlines important definitions, implementation and development of the plan, prioritization of capital projects, allocation of resources, and final submission of the plan to the mayor and city commission for approval. Similar to the budget process, the CIP will be presented at a commission meeting and a public hearing will be held prior to approval. The proposed resolution will become effective July 1st, 2023. And upon adoption of the resolution, staff will immediately begin working on the development of the capital improvement plan for its incorporation into the fiscal year 23-24 budget process. And with that, I'll happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions? We talked about this a little bit a couple months back.
A step in the right direction on keeping asset quality and not just wearing equipment out before we get rid. So yeah, this is, and from a business standpoint, they should have been doing this a long time ago.
I agree.
The policy's good too, and it helps us and the public track it and understand where we are and the why behind what we're doing. So I'm really happy to see this on our desk.
Anybody else? Anybody got a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you,
Second.
sir. Mark and Daniel. All righty, we'll leave it to our city attorney now to get her part.
Mr. Mayor, a resolution of the City of Shawnee setting forth a capital improvement plan policy.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a motion and a second. We will call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 8 is a public hearing and consideration of an ordinance to amend the comprehensive plan land use designation on property located at 4731 North Union Avenue, containing approximately 16.25 acres. Case number is CPA 01-22, applicant Donna Palmer, represented by David M. Box. Mr. Harkins, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As noted, this is a amendment to the comprehensive plan. As a matter of record, we haven't done these that often, but it does come to you as the first step in a process of due diligence for the property owner as the applicant. They are looking at changing the land use designation from its current designation of low density and greenway to a high density residential land use designation. This would allow them, with the proper zoning in place, to continue the pattern of multifamily development that you see in this section of the community. The applicant has given us a conceptual drawing of their idea. At this point in time, we know that they'll have some additional work they have to do to pencil everything out with regard to engineering design for the site. But again, this is the very first, and then the next agenda item would be the second step in this process. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission at a public hearing on December 7th and comes with a recommendation to you on a 5-0 vote to approve the comprehensive plan amendment. Staff concurs with that recommendation as well and would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions?
I have one.
There you go.
When we passed the comprehensive plan and then followed that with a plan for how it would be amended, one of the things we considered was that when we made changes, we would reapportion. So if we converted 16 acres from one use to the other, we would find space in the community. That being said, high density was one of the areas that I think the plan acknowledged we were already low on and needed to find space for. So can you speak to on this item whether our plan is to reapportion some land that's currently high density back to this use, or are we saying, hey, we're already low on this and so this is going to help perhaps provide what we believe we need?
Sure. We have not designated an area to reapportion at this time. We feel that's something we can reevaluate as we go forward if we need to take that step. Right now, we're focused more on because of the lack of housing in the community and the need for additional multifamily units, we're looking more at this step in that process. Reapportionment is something we could look at as part of the annual review process of the comprehensive plan, and with more census data coming out, we're probably within a couple of years looking at an update anyway, so that would be another opportunity to do that reapportionment.
I think if I remember right, those that were here a little longer than you guys, we looked at a question one night on 39th Street, and I think it was right about 16 acres that they wanted to do high density, and we ended up doing single family. And then we were going to look at trying to find 16 acres, and I couldn't believe when I read this that there we have 16 acres. So, I mean, it sort of took care of itself.
I think that's a good point.
Right?
It's kind of the back end of that transaction.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And I mean, I think it was more I was asking the question because we had made it part of the process to do it or to look into that, but also acknowledging that this is kind of the one area we knew we were perhaps short on.
And that at the time you adopted that comprehensive plan, you really, if you looked at this now, you would call it an unanticipated opportunity.
Sure.
I had the same thought when I saw that 39th Street,
Yeah.
this was gonna fill back in.
So I remember that was 16 acres, and just the odds of that being the same kind of struck me. So sometimes things balance out, I guess.
That's what I thought as well.
Any other questions or comments? How about a motion?
It's a public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry,
indeed.
public hearing. So let's do that. Let's open public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? How are you? Looks like you got pictures and everything.
I do.
That
You
was
all may
great.
have this already. Caitlin Turner, 522 Colcord Drive, on behalf of the applicant, who is here with me as well. Here is a conceptual rendering of the proposed multifamily development. As you can see, well, as was stated, there's the comprehensive plan amendment as well as the rezoning application. The property is currently low-density residential and then also A1. We're seeking high-density residential as well as an R3 base zoning. This multifamily development right here is also R3. The surrounding properties are medium and high-density residential, so we believe that with this comprehensive plan amendment, it'll be harmonious and compatible with the surrounding properties. There's also C3 north and south, as well as some R1, and then C2 and R3 over on the west. So we believe both applications to be compatible. Staff also stated that high-density residential is a more appropriate land use designation for this property. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you all have, and we ask for your approval.
Any questions while we've got her?
So that butts up to the backside of the R1 that they're just now starting to develop?
Yeah.
That is correct, yes.
Yeah.
I think the
Cart-
nature of the area, especially with that commercial surrounding it.
So where Littles are building that road?
It'll also be a gated area. We have the stream that runs through that is being accommodated for, and then locations for amenities.
Is it the two entrances and exits out there on Union
Yes.
only?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 2 access points, both on Union.
Any other questions?
So the buffering between the R1 and that, what are we gonna do?
It'll meet ordinance since it's a straight rezoning application, so whatever the ordinance requires for properties abutting residential, we will meet or exceed.
Good. Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else like to speak in favor? Seeing none, is there anyone that'd like to speak in opposition? Okay, we will close the public hearing. You guys, any other discussion up here, or would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve the item.
Okay,
I'll second.
thank you, sir. All righty, we have a motion and a second, so you're up. That's a long one.
An ordinance concerning the land use designation of the following described property located within the corporate limits of the city of Shawnee, Potawatomi County, Oklahoma, to wit: a tract of land lying in the southwest quarter of Section 2, Township 10 North, Range 3 east of the Indian Meridian, Potawatomi County, Oklahoma, more particularly described as follows: the north 12 acres of the west half of the southwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 31, Township 11 North, Range 4 East, and a parcel of land described as beginning at the southwest corner of the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter, thence north 180 feet, thence east 440 feet, thence south 180 feet, thence west 440 feet to the place of beginning, all located in the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 31, Township 11 North, Range 4 East, and a parcel of land described as beginning at a point 180 feet north of the southwest corner of the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter, thence north 105 feet, thence east 660 feet, thence south 285 feet, thence west 220 feet, thence north 180 feet, thence west to the point of beginning, all located in the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 31, Township 11 North, Range 4 East, more generally known as 4731 North Union Avenue, from future land use map land designations, low-density residential and greenway to high-density residential, amending the official future land use map of the comprehensive plan of the City of Shawnee accordingly.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 8. We'll call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 9 is a public hearing in consideration of an ordinance to rezone property located at 4731 North Union Avenue containing approximately 16.25 acres from A1 Rural Agricultural District to R3 Multifamily Residential District, case number RZ 13-22, applicant Donna Palmer, represented by David M. Box. And Mr. Harkins, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the follow-up agenda item to the land use amendment you just passed. This is a rezoning request to take the same 16-acre property as noted from A1 to R3. There is R3 adjacent to the subject property, so this would be just an extension of that zoning district rather than a case of spot zoning. The Planning Commission looked at this item on December 7th at a public hearing and made a vote of 5-0 to recommend approval to you. Staff's recommendation based on the approved land use amendment is to approve the rezoning request as well. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? I think we'll make sure I see Mark looking for something. Everybody good?
I'm good.
All righty. Okay, thank you very much. We will open public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor? And you're welcome to come speak again.
Might as well. Caitlin Turner, 522 Colcord Drive. Again, not sure there's a whole lot to reiterate other than there's the R3 to the west of the property. There's the commercial also surrounding it. Based on the need of this use and the compatibility with the area, we request that it be approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you. Anyone else like to speak in favor? Thank you, ma'am. Seeing none, is there anyone here that would like to speak in opposition? And with that, we'll close the public hearing. So is there a motion?
Move to approve item 9.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Daniel and Darren. Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. An ordinance concerning the zoning classification of the following described property located within the corporate limits of the City of Shawnee, Pottawatomie County, Oklahoma, to wit: a tract of land lying in the southwest quarter of Section 2, Township 10 North, Range 3 east of the Indian Meridian, Pottawatomie County, Oklahoma, more particularly described as follows: the north 12 acres of the west half of the southwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 31, Township 11 North, Range 4 East, and a parcel of land described as beginning at the southwest corner of the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter, thence north 180 feet, thence east 440 feet, thence south 180 feet, thence west 440 feet to the place of beginning, all located in the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 31, Township 11 North, Range 4 East, and a parcel of land described as beginning at a point 180 feet north of the southwest corner of the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter, thence north 105 feet, thence east 660 feet, thence south 285 feet, thence west 220 feet, thence north 180 feet, thence west to the point of beginning, all located in the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 31, Township 11 North, Range 4 East, more generally known as 4731 North Union Avenue, from zoning classification A1, Rural Agricultural District, to R3, Multifamily Residential District, amending the official zoning map of the city of Shawnee accordingly.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we have a motion, a second for approval of item 9. We'll call the question. What's that? Motion passes 7-0. Item 10 is also a public hearing in consideration of an ordinance to rezone property located at 39104 West MacArthur Street from RE Residential Estates District to I2 Industrial Light District, case number RZ 14-22, applicant, and I'm going to say this wrong and I apologize, Nan T-Fam. And Mr. Hargan, to your backup, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As noted, this is a rezoning request for a property to be rezoned from the RE Residential Estates District to the I2 Light Industrial. The applicant is looking to transfer, if this is approved, a medical marijuana growing facility license to this location, hence the request for the I2 zoning. There is currently a house on the property that is a single-family detached structure. The applicant is looking at the I2 zoning request in order to be able to use the house as a dwelling unit, essentially as a watchman's residence for the grow facility, which would be located to the north side of the property. The other reason for the I2 zoning request is the fact that to the immediate south is I2 zoning. There is RE zoning to the immediate north and east of this property, and then a PUD that contains C2 and R3 is noted in the staff report. So this is an eclectic mix of zoning districts in this area. We've noted the use. We've also noted in the staff report medical marijuana grow facilities under current code are allowed in the C3 zoning district. That would again allow the grow operation, would not allow the use of the house as the watchman's residence. When we walked through that at the Planning Commission's public hearing, we noted that staff's recommendation is to deny the request for the I2 zoning, but as an alternative, if the Planning Commission wanted to, they could make the recommendation to you to go to a less intense zoning classification than what was requested, hence the C3. Again, that would allow the grow facility without the use of the house. Planning Commission's recommendation, however, was to deny the request completely. That came on a vote that was split, actually. Staff's recommendation is, again, to deny this request based on land use patterns and the comprehensive plan. With that, staff would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions?
This house is currently on the market to be sold. It's been on the market for like 6 months roughly. How does that
Correct.
factor into, does that weigh in on the Planning Commission's decision
It
at
did
all?
not.
Was it even a,
Nope.
okay.
The only time it was noted was by the applicant's representative that they were in discussion to purchase and close on the property. But as a factor in the Planning Commission's discussion or staff's presentation, no.
There was a previous case similar to this one on a location, I believe, just to the east of this and south. Probably, I think, would have been before your time. And I think planning and the city commission both decided our main arterial corridor wasn't a location at that time they were ready to approve something like this for. Is that still, appears it's still staff's
Staff's recommendation is based on the development pattern currently and the surrounding uses that this is not a compatible use in this area.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I do have one.
Go ahead.
Does the location of an education facility, do our ordinances speak to that, as this would be essentially catty corner to the Oklahoma State University Extension Facility?
Okay, so
Do they speak to it, and
our local code does not. OMMA's statutes talk specifically to K-12 type
Gotcha.
facilities, not extension type facilities.
thank you.
Any other questions while you've got Brian? If not, we'll open the hearing. Okay, so we will open the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this proposition? Seeing none, is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Well, we will close the public hearing. All righty, that's to us. I think you're right, Daniel. I think that other one was like,
Yeah, it
like
was
maybe a quarter mile.
It
or
was
less,
just down,
to
I
the west and
believe,
on the
I don't remember if it was
south
the east side or the west side of Redeemer Lutheran Church, but
Mhm.
looking at, I mean, it's not far.
Yeah, it's not far at all.
It was, I don't remember which side it was. I mean, it continues to be my feeling that one of our main arterials, and with the developments going on there, this isn't a proper location for this at the time, so, there's no one else that wants to jump in. I'll make a motion that we follow staff and the planning commission's recommendation, we deny the application.
I'll second.
Well,
Well, who was first there? Which
there,
one?
whoever, it don't matter.
So,
I agree with Daniel.
Daniel, and we'll say Mark has that. And so that's to deny. Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and you're up.
Rezone to I-2 Light Industrial District. An ordinance concerning the zoning classification of the following described property located within the corporate limits of the city of Shawnee, Pottawatomie County, Oklahoma, to wit. A tract of land described as beginning at a point of 2090 feet west of the southeast corner of the southwest quarter of Section 2, Township 10 North, Range 3 east of the Indian Meridian, Pottawatomie County, Oklahoma, thence north 1,320 feet, thence east 154 feet, thence south 1,320 feet, thence west 154 feet, to the point of beginning, more generally located at 39104 West MacArthur Street, from zoning classification RE Residential Estates District to I-2 Light Industrial District, amending the official zoning map of the city of Shawnee accordingly.
So if our motion was to deny it, I'm wondering if I even had to have you read that. Just
I'm sorry.
just so I learned something here.
So I'm sorry.
So the motion was to deny it. I bet we didn't even need to have you read that then, or did we?
Yes, you're simply not, you will not be having an ordinance to approve it, so we're
Right.
denying the applicability of this
Yes.
proposed
So-
ordinance.
But I just
So,
was
so
make-
point of order, right, or clarification.
Yes.
The motion was to deny, so a
Right.
yes vote is a
It's
no.
denied.
Yes.
Right?
Yes vote is a
Just
no.
make sure we're
But I
all-
didn't know if I really even need to have you read that, so I'm just trying to learn.
I think it is proper still, so that you know
Okay.
exactly what you're denying and what you're
Okay.
voting against, yes.
Very
So,
good.
so a yes vote is a denial,
yes
and a no
is a
vote is
deny,
approval.
yes.
Gotcha.
Make sure.
That's what I thought I was, but
There you go.
I'd rather clarify it.
Yeah.
saves us an agenda item on the next meeting.
There you go. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to deny the request in item 10, so we will call the question. And 7-0, so that is denied. Item 11, public hearing and consideration of an ordinance to rezone property located approximately 1/2 mile north of West Tech Road and west of North Kickapoo Avenue, containing approximately 80.05 acres from A1 Rural Agriculture District to R1 Single Family Residential District, Case number RZ 15-22, applicant John Woods, J.C. Woods Investment LLC. Mr. Harkins, you've been a busy man tonight.
Doing what we can, sir. So as noted, this is a rezoning request for a tract that's approximately 80 acres. Part of the property is zoned A1, part is zoned R1. Area to the east is also zoned R1, so this would be a continuation of that zoning pattern. The subject site, as noted, is on the north end of the community. The land use designation right now is urban reserve, but when we look at the future growth patterns, this low-density residential development is, in staff's mind, compatible with the land comprehensive plan. Planning Commission looked at this rezoning as part of this potential development at its December 7th meeting and recommended approval to you on a 5-0 vote. Staff's recommendation is to approve the rezoning request as well. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
I guess my question would kind of go back to the other case we had. If we're for rezoning, will we look for land for urban reserve in other areas? Not that we have to do it now, but or do we need to under a simple rezone? We say we reserved it and this is the use we believe is appropriate.
And when you reserve it, put it into urban reserve, you're looking at the fact that at some point that will likely convert into
something
developable land anyway. Okay. So it's essentially a transition type of use.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I guess we will open the hearing. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of this proposition? Come on up, sir. How are you?
Good evening. My name's Scott Holtzen. I'm with Holtzen Engineering Group representing the developer, Mr. Woods. And just to reinstate, we would like to take the portion of the property that is zoned agricultural, rezone it to R1 to match the rest of the property, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Any questions? No, I think it was pretty straightforward. Thank you so much. Anyone else like to speak in favor? Seeing none, is there anyone that'd like to speak in opposition? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Anything else up here? Not, how about a motion?
I'll make a motion we approve the item.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have a motion and a second. You're up again.
I think it may be the last one.
I think it is. That's probably why Joe took off tonight and made you do all that reading.
An ordinance concerning the zoning classification of the following described property located within the corporate limits of the city of Shawnee, Potawatomi County, Oklahoma, to it. Being the north half of the southeast quarter of section 25, township 11 north, range 3 east of the Indian Meridian, city of Shawnee, Potawatomi County, Oklahoma, more generally known approximately 80.05 acres located 1/2 mile north of West Tech Road and west of North Kickapoo Avenue, from zoning classification A1, Rural Agricultural District, to R1, Single Family Residential District, amending the official zoning map of the city of Shawnee accordingly.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 11. We will call the question. And motion passes 7-0. Item 12, consideration of a preliminary plat for Heritage Plains Edition located 1/2 mile north of West Tech Road and west of North Kickapoo Avenue, containing approximately 80 acres. Case number PPL 06-22. Applicant John Woods, J.C. Woods Investments LLC. One more time, Mr. Harkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is the follow-on item to the previous agenda. item that you just approved. This is a request for preliminary plat for approximately 272 lots. This would continue the residential, single-family detached residential pattern that we've experienced on the north side of the city. During the review process, community development and the city engineer requested a traffic impact analysis as noted in the staff report. Staff has received it and reviewed it. We did not see any issues that would cause concern or alarm. The TIA indicated, as noted in the staff report, no additional traffic infrastructure necessary at this time. We also received a request from the applicant for a waiver of a section of the subdivision regulations relating to mid-block crosswalks. That item was part of the review that the Planning Commission did. When they reviewed this on December 7th, they approved the subdivision, or they recommend approval of the subdivision to you with that waiver from the subdivision regulations. Staff's recommendation to you is to approve the agenda item as well with the waiver, subject to, as noted in Planning Commission staff report, as well as in your staff report, the recommendations of the Planning Commission, which would be revisions of street name changes as approved by city staff. The applicant has no objections to that at this time, so staff would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions? There's no questions. How about a motion?
Move to approve item 12.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Danielle and Travis. Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 12. We'll call the question. Oh, yes.
Motion to approve the preliminary plat.
Honestly, I think we need to specify which, if you want to include the waiver at this time, then you need to articulate that. If you wish to address that at a later point, then.
Okay, very good. Daniel, do you want to take your motion back and include that?
Yes, I will. I'll withdraw the motion, and I will trying to figure out how to word it.
If I'm understanding, are you wishing to approve it with the waiver or without?
With the waiver. Make a motion to approve with the waiver.
Seems simple enough. Okay,
You good with
thank
that?
you, sir. Travis, you still want to offer your second?
Yes, sir.
Would you like me to specify?
With the waiver to, do we
With-
need to specify what the waiver is?
I make a motion that we approve with a waiver of section 40.2.5.c of the subdivision regulations.
Could you repeat the section, please?
Move to approve the item, including a waiver of section 40.2.5.c of the subdivision regulations.
Thank you.
And I still second that.
All right, very good. We have a motion and a second for approval of item 12. We will call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 13, consideration of a budget amendment for fiscal year 2022 to 2023 for Fund 001, General Fund, to fund vehicle repair, maintenance, and fuel costs across several departments, with sales tax revenues exceeding budget estimates. And Ms. McNabb Fox is back up.
Good evening again. I'm presenting a budget amendment for your consideration totaling $184,740 for the general fund. So during an analysis of budget to actuals, 2 areas across several departments were found to have inadequate budget for the remainder of the fiscal year. These 2 items were for fuel for $103,890, and vehicle repair and maintenance for $80,850. This budget shortfall is likely due to increased cost of fuel and materials. Also, the city garage was closed last fiscal year, and staff was not able to adequately determine what the projected expenses would be, therefore needing this budget amendment. This additional appropriation will be funded by sales tax collections that are exceeding budget estimates for the general fund.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions?
The fuel part I understand. Do we have are we developing procedures perhaps that will now in the second year without the garage allow us to more accurately predict cost?
Yes, sir. We'll be looking at that for the FY24 budget process to increase that line item for your consideration of the 24 budget.
Well, not just increase. How do we get to accurate? Like, increasing isn't all that I'm concerned about. Like, I want it to be accurate.
Correct, and we'll be looking at the historical figures to make sure that we are accurate for that particular line item.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I mean, my concern probably is the fuel, oil, and lubricants with fuel prices dropping like they have to where, how did we miss it by $100,000? Good question.
Yes, that's a good question.
Because we know fuel has come down 50% from its high a year ago.
Yes, sir. And that particular line item was increased in the budget last year. It just wasn't increased enough. Also, some of that line item is for oil changes as well. So the cost of that increased with the garage closing. Because all those,
a lot of that's maintenance, not fuel.
some of the fuel, I mean, some of it is just fuel, some of it is oil that they're purchasing. So some departments will split fund the oil change to be part of that fuel and oil lubricants. And some will use that repairs and maintenance line item for oil changes, but it is a combination of the two.
So, and you can break out between what's oil changes and what's fuel, I presume?
I could, yes.
I'd be interested in see what we're spending on actual fuel versus last year, and then that, you know, which we have savings on the garage not being open.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm good.
Any other questions? Thought we'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve item 13.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Daniel and Cammie. Okay. Very good. We have a motion and a second for approval of item 13. We'll call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 14, acknowledge monthly sales tax report. You didn't get to be away very long.
Yes, sir. All right, so the sales tax report for December totaled $2,191,772, which includes $1,667 in interest. This is distributed across 7 funds, with $1.25 million going to the general fund. These collections are 12% over budget projections for the month and 4.6% over December of last year. Year to date, we are 14.5% ahead of budget and 7% over this same time last year. December was a slight decline from November. Use tax for December totaled $218,674, which is a 2% decrease from December 2021 and a 32% decrease from budget projections for the month. Year to date, collections are 4% above this same time last year. The general fund is currently $942,000 above budget projections when you combine sale and use tax. We have appropriated $395,000 of that to date, plus the $184,000 just approved in the previous item, leaving a balance unappropriated of $362,000.
Good. Anybody got any questions? Guess not, it's good news again.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All righty, item 15, we have 1, 2, 3 administrative reports. So, first one is Mr. Harkins with the Santa Fe Depot update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. We just wanted to give you a quick overview of some of the latest steps and developments with the depot. One of them already was on your agenda earlier tonight with the design contract with GH2 for the depot and the roof, but we also wanted to highlight that the city did submit on November 30th an application to the Oklahoma Department of Transportation for the Transportation Alternatives Program. That is a funding source. You may remember the special meeting to approve the resolution for it. That is a funding source for the exterior renovation for the roof and brickwork, stonework, windows. So that essentially would be, if we are selected and successful, $800,000 of revenue for construction that is not needed to come from the city's general fund, which would be a huge help. So the grant was submitted, the grant application was submitted with over 25 letters of support. So to the entire community, including some of you, thank you. There's no way we could have gotten the level of support without many of you reaching out to businesses and other groups in the community. I would note that the letters of support included local businesses, local institutions, private individuals, 2 former governors, members of the state legislature, and some of you sitting at the dais. So please know that staff is incredibly grateful for your help with this. I would also note there are a number of categories when you look at the Transportation Alternative Program application booklet. There are a number of categories that you can apply for funding from. This is the category that we came in with our application under. So this is essentially community improvement activities for historic preservation. The depot being at one time a museum, likely will have some kind of historic reference and museum artifacts in it in some form or fashion, potentially going forward. And the fact that this is on the National Register helps us qualify for that activity. With that said, you may recall the latest cost estimate that GH2 provided puts us just over $1 million for this, what we would call the first phase. And we noted in the application that the first phase is the building roof and the exterior. If we were to not be successful, that potentially could be one reason why. They would look at it as you're doing a phase and then another phase, so it's not a complete project. In our mind, we made the argument that we can't do anything with the interior without fixing the exterior part first, and doing that makes this a complete and usable project day one once that roof is fixed. The scoring criteria that the Department of Transportation uses is on your screen in front of you. This essentially focuses on how does this fit into the existing transportation network? How has this been used in the past? What kind of planning and community support do you have? You'll notice, however, public support does not get a lot of points on the scoring criteria. So we had to really work at making sure we explained well how this fits into the community fabric already. As well as, I would note, how we plan to deliver this project, how we look at being ready to go, including having the design ready, and how we're providing additional matching funds. We're required, with a community of our size, to provide 20% of the project cost. So to give you an idea of where do we go from here, we have submitted everything. ODOT is starting to look through the applications. There were over 100 communities interested in this application cycle. How many applications they actually received, we don't know at this time. We will find that out later in the spring. In April, ODOT staff will make their final recommendations for awards to the Department of Transportation Commission, which will be approved and announced at that time. For now, other activities we will look at, now that you've approved the contract, execute that for design and get that underway. We'll look at some additional funding sources for not only the exterior, but potentially the interior as well. And then continue discussions about ways we could potentially use tax increment funds, as well as discussions with other potential stakeholders. So with that said, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody got questions? Guess not. Good
Thank you.
update. Well, I think maybe.
Did
you
I
have a
just
question?
miss when we were gonna hear back about when we would know about the grant?
We will hear back in April.
Right. Okay, sorry, I thought you said-
The DOT commission will meet then and make their final recommendations, and selections will be announced then.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Okay, next one up is the construction permitting. Mr. Barkheimer, how are you tonight?
Pretty good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, thanks for the opportunity to come speak to you guys today regarding our construction inspection process. I know this is a complicated topic that you guys probably get several emails on, and several of you having been through the process of building here in town. I know it comes with a special interest to you, so bear with me if you're familiar, and for those of you that aren't, I hope to give you a brief overview. To start off with, I'd just like to show you where permitting and inspections fall in our org chart. There's somewhat recent additions to the engineering department. I think they've moved over in our restructuring a little over a year ago. As you can see in the graphic, they join GIS and code enforcement within the engineering office. So when we talk about permitting, specifically in regard to construction, why is it important? What is it? Why is it a function of the municipality? And ultimately, the answer to that question is public safety. So it's about making sure that the buildings in our community are constructed in a sound and solid way, so that when we have natural disasters, whether that's tornadoes or extreme weather conditions like we might have later in the week, that the city doesn't suffer unnecessary financial issues or more importantly, unnecessary loss of life. So also worth mentioning, it protects the consumer. If you're purchasing a property, you want to know that the electrical wire that was used is the proper gauge. You want to know that your water pipes was buried to the proper depth under the footing. I pulled this straight from the IBC. Building codes are regulations governing the design, construction, alterations, and maintenance of structures. These codes specify the minimum requirements to safeguard the health, safety, and welfare of the building's occupants. They're enforced to make buildings safer. So at the end of the day, again, it's to ensure public safety. So my apologies if this is a little bit small. This flow chart will also end up online for you to revisit. We talked a little bit about the why. Let's discuss a little bit more about the how. This is obviously meant to be a visual aid kind of our permit and inspection process for new construction. So that's residential and commercial construction. Starting up kind of in the top left-hand corner, generally the review timeline is about 3 to 5 days for residential permits. So if you submit for a residential building permit, the review timeline is about 3 days. It's a little bit longer for commercial permits. Right now we're somewhere between 10 and 15 days, depending on how large the permit application is. If the submittal fails, so you're lacking an element of the plan review that we need to see, comments are issued back to you for either coordination or revision. And then when you resubmit, it re-enters that process again. So typically it does take longer than one submittal for commercial projects, but for residential projects, a lot of times you're in and out in less than a business week. In looking at the construction process, we obviously have it simplified so we could fit it onto one sheet. So within each category of inspection, so those 4 orange boxes that you see there, There's obviously subcategories of inspections that we're doing. So for example, within the building inspection, we have foundation, sheathing, framing, insulation, etc. So within each one of those other trade categories, we have subcategories as well. And again, you enter into the pass-fail scenario. If you call for inspection and pass, you move on to the next phase, which is final inspection. If you fail, you get a notification of why you failed, and you, after either coordinating or correcting that failure, you're able to call for a re-inspection or a recheck. So again, this is just a general summary of the construction permit process, and I have a similar flow chart on the next slide for remodel permits. And I think the biggest confusion for the remodel permit process is, when do I need a remodel permit, right? When do I cross the threshold from normal building maintenance into remodel? So we put this flow chart together just to try to help that conversation. It's definitely not all encompassing. So if the project involves a trade, so new electrical, new plumbing, new HVAC, you need a permit. If you're adding walls, changing egress, adding square footage to the building permit, you need a permit. If the project is more aesthetic, so you're painting, flooring, new cabinets, you don't need a permit. I know that's an oversimplification, but that's just trying to get some general rule of thumb out there. Beyond that, the remodel permit is very similar to the new construction that we just talked about on the previous slide. The submittal comes in from the owner or contractor. The review typically takes less than a week. For commercial projects, it will take up to 10 days. And then the project is passed on to construction after that permit is issued. And hopefully that provides a little bit of clarity for our building permits and remodels. So we've talked about why, we've talked about how. Let's talk a little bit about who. So we have one chief code official, that's Kevin Moore. I know you guys are familiar with him. He's been in the commission chamber before. He works as both an inspector and a plan reviewer, as well as the supervisor for inspection, permitting, and code enforcement. We have one full-time building inspector, that's Kenny Wiseman, one full-time construction inspector, that's Justin Lamelli, and one full-time permit tech, that's Sandy Rehagen. I would also mention that given our call volume and just the general number of permits, that my engineering admin, Cassie Choate, chips in and works as a second permit tech, basically just to answer the phones and help out. So she's jumped in and basically become a second permit tech, but also has the weight of the engineering office to take care of. So I make a point to mention these folks because when you look at the number of permits that we have ongoing, we have a pretty good workload. So we have 185 new permits since January 1st. That's not all permits, that's just new construction permits. So that's residential and commercial new and remodel permits. And that's just since January 1st of this year. And that's a very similar number to what we had in 2021. So we've been growing and carrying on for quite a while now. We've had approximately 3,287 inspections this calendar year. So that is including all those other permits, but building inspections is wrapped up in there. But then that was as of Friday, so we're probably up over 3,300 if you include today. So with really 2 building inspectors, 3,300 inspections in a calendar year is a pretty good workload. We have 137 ongoing construction permits, and 40 of those are commercial permits. So that's new commercial and or remodels. With that, try to give you a high-level overview of the department. I know there's a lot more. We could stay here all night and talk about it. I'm happy not to. So if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Questions?
Busy department.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Thank you so much. Good report. All righty, one more. State of infrastructure. That is Andrea's.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Tonight, I would like to speak to you about the state of infrastructure across the nation, in Oklahoma, and certainly within our community. Concerns related to the general condition of infrastructure and the tremendous need for repair and replacement has also been the driving force behind the capital improvement plan policy that was introduced to you and approved this evening. This capital improvement plan framework is designed to promote consistency and continuity in decision-making, promote the city's financial stability, and most of all, focus attention on the necessity to meet these long-term infrastructure needs. For many decades, state and municipal governments have focused so much on building and expanding infrastructure, and the majority of the infrastructure we use today is decades old. And although it may not be of comfort to hear, our community is not alone in working through the challenges of having infrastructure that has long exceeded its useful life. Frequent headlines highlight infrastructure failures that have occurred across the entire nation, as well as in Oklahoma, in communities both large and small. To name a few, these events include a bridge collapse in Oklahoma City, a washed-out road in Cherokee County, the recent wastewater incident in Bethany, which flooded residential streets with raw sewage, and the water shortage in Sassaqua. The primary issue seen across the country is insufficient funding to meet the needs of an aging infrastructure. And the second issue, which goes hand in hand with the funding, is inadequate or unachievable repair and replacement plans. When the plan and the funding only allow a roadway to be touched once every 100 years, the system has clearly failed. In regular intervals, the American Society of Civil Engineers produces a report card for our nation's infrastructure. This comprehensive analysis looks at multiple factors, including infrastructure capacity and condition, and the current level of funding versus the estimated funding need, the impact to public health and safety if that particular infrastructure were to fail. It evaluates and grades 17 different categories of infrastructure, including aviation, bridges, rail, and energy. With the release of the 2021 report card for America's infrastructure, we have some good news. It reveals we have made some incremental progress towards restoring our nation's infrastructure. We are no longer a D grade, we're now a C minus. With that said, when we look at the issues that impact our city core services the most, which is roadways, stormwater, water, and wastewater, we see scores of low C or Ds. I know that as a student, if I had brought home those grades to my parents, I would have heard words. The 2021 report card estimates that between 2020 and 2029, our nation will see $1.6 trillion in unmet funding needs for surface transportation, drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater alone. To underscore that point, on an average day, and you may have seen our Facebook just over the weekend, there is a water main break approximately every 2 minutes, and an estimated 6 billion gallons of treated water are lost every single day. In addition, wear and tear on our nation's street have left 43% of our public roadways in poor or mediocre condition, a number that has remained stagnant over the past several years. Looking a little closer to home, we see some slightly better statewide report cards in Texas, Kansas, Missouri, and Colorado. Oklahoma's last comprehensive statewide analysis through the ASCE report card system was done in 2013, so it is a little aged. At that time, 18% of all of the public roadways were in poor condition. $6.5 billion were needed to shore up drinking water infrastructure over the next 20 years, and $1.3 billion were needed for wastewater needs. The 2013 study provided a general statewide grade of C-, while roadways specifically scored a D, and water and wastewater were a combined D+. As you will see in just a moment, Oklahoma's infrastructure has not significantly changed. The most recent information available for the state of Oklahoma altogether stems from a 2019 ASCE report, which highlights the continuing challenges we face in our state. In that report, no letter grades were assigned for either infrastructure types or statewide, but it was reported that roadways got worse, and the amount of public roadways classified as being in poor condition increased from 18% to 33%. For drinking water infrastructure needs, the estimated funding needs for the next 20 years increased slightly to $6.9 billion. For wastewater, the estimated funding needs almost doubled to $2.4 billion. Keeping in mind that these numbers represent 2019 estimates, and we all remember inflation really took hold this year, I can only imagine how much higher these numbers would be if they had been run this year. We most recently saw that with our wastewater treatment plant. The city has jurisdiction over many physical assets, all of the ones that are listed here on this slide. Each one carries with it the responsibility for maintenance and operations. And allow me to just elaborate on the top three you see right there. We have 565 total roadway lane miles. And we know that 260 miles, which is 46%, have a pavement index of 50 out of 100, which means that a simple overlay treatment may no longer fix those roads. These poor pavement conditions may require now a full roadway replacement, which is considerably more costly than any overlay treatment. So much so that at the current investment levels, we will not be able to touch every single roadway within the city but once every 100 years. Likewise, we have 240 miles of water and 193 miles of wastewater lines, of which a combined 150 miles are 50 years or older, at which point those water and wastewater lines become brittle and very prone to breakage. At current line maintenance and replacement investment levels, it would take us more than 150 years to address the entirety of the system. In summary, without a significantly different approach, the current insufficient funding levels and inadequate repair and replacement plans will likely cause our city's system to fail. And I would hate to be one of those entities who makes headlines in the newspaper. Looking back at the 2021 report card for America's infrastructure, the American Society of Civil Engineers introduced 3 particular categories of recommendations for addressing the nation's infrastructure demands. Again, we are not alone in this particular situation. It is truly nationwide. They call out leadership and action, which includes prioritizing asset management systems, prioritizing projects with critical benefits for public safety, the local economy, environment and quality of life, and also factoring in life cycle cost. How much does it cost to maintain that capital asset over the life it was designed for? Investment, we need increased long-term and consistent investment. The ASCE report specifically notes that infrastructure owners and operators, in this particular case the city, must charge and Americans must be willing to pay rates reflecting the true cost of using, maintaining, and improving that infrastructure. Resilience is called out as the third area. Resilience includes the prioritization of projects that improve the safety and security of the system and the community they serve to ensure continued reliability and enhanced resilience. The report also noted that we need a strategic and holistic plan to renew, modernize, and invest in all of our infrastructure. This plan should make basic maintenance a centerpiece, not just expansion and additions. We need to improve our legacy system. We as policymakers and executors must understand that we're only as good as the weakest link within our infrastructure. If we have a roadway that is too rough to travel, it will drive business away. If we have a bridge that needs to be closed to heavier vehicles and all of a sudden a fire truck or an ambulance may no longer cross it, the whole community suffers. In seeing the infrastructure demands that our nation, our state, and our city are grappling with, I want to highlight the diligent progress that has been made just this past year. In 2022, the city of Shawnee has taken significant steps to address the state of our own infrastructure. We have done so through the implementation of a digital asset management system, CityWorks, which went live only a few weeks ago. We're still working out a few kinks, but so far so good. It's awesome. The adoption of a budget reserve policy, which began in the current year budget process, which is to provide financial sustainability for uncertain times. The review of and appropriate action on long-term funding options so that we can be prepared for large-scale infrastructure improvements when necessary. And of course, something that you just voted on earlier this evening, the adoption and implementation of our capital improvement plan policies so that we can promote the consistency and continuity in the decision-making for years to come and for generations to come. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions on the general state of infrastructure here and everywhere.
Questions? A lot of good information.
I think a lot of my questions would be directed towards things that are already being addressed. The water treatment plant, the wastewater treatment, the attention to replacement of the city water lines and those things that are so important. I think there's obviously action being taken already for a lot of the most concerning things.
What we really need is to address our 100 and 150-year replacement schedules. Deferring maintenance is an easy thing because until that infrastructure fails, it really does not bubble to the forefront of mind.
I'm sure you want to make different posts when the city water mains broke again.
I know.
3 times a day.
I know. I'd love to make different posts.
Any other questions? Guess not. Thank you so much.
Thank
Three
you.
very, very good reports, like always. Item 16 is new business.
No new business, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Item 17 is commissioner comments. Lauren, you want to start down your end?
Yeah, sorry, I had a tickle in my throat. Something I had written down before everything started is I made a Facebook post about it, but I got the QR code last week from the downtown merchant meeting at the library, and I knew what it was, so it took me until today to actually use it, because at the time of the meeting I was writing and my phone was trying to track every single QR code, so I got it zoned in, and I pulled it up, and it's pretty comprehensive. I mean, it's got a year's worth dating back to a year ago or more of administrative reports, and the timestamps of the YouTube video of the meeting, and I think this is great. I think I had asked Andrea for something like this right whenever I was elected, before I was even sworn in. Can I have something like this to take it all in, fire hose style? And now it's there for everybody. So if you watch the city meetings on YouTube, or if you attend them and you're like me, I'm attending them, and I think back and I remember a specific meeting where we did talk about it, or there was an administrative report, instead of being like I was, where I had to go through and dig through past agendas and read through and find it. Now it's just all right there. it's itemized by topic, and the PowerPoints accompany the time-stamped videos. So I appreciate that. I don't know if that was you specifically, or if it was our news, everybody's. Okay, I appreciate that very much. It's going to make me digging for things an obsolete task. As far as tonight's meeting, again, thank you for more administrative reports. Thank you, Seth. I enjoyed the flow charts. They were easy enough for me to read, and I actually do have, coincidentally enough, 2 people approached me yesterday asking specifically about where they were in that flow chart as far as permitting and code enforcement, and I have notifications to go off at certain times of the week to get back with them, so now I can at least address parts of it with that. I'm excited to see a new housing addition in my ward. I was looking, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I didn't think to ask it during the specific moment, but that housing addition looks like it's in the Shawnee Public Schools school district and not North Dark Creek. I was looking at the land map, and then I was looking at the GIS map online just to double check, because I had a few right at the beginning of my time in the office ask specifically. They were concerned about it being in the North Dark Creek district or the Shawnee district. So now I have that to go back. Finally, after 4 months of them asking me, I can go back and say, I know for sure now. Let me go back to my files here. Thank you to everybody who came and spoke during the public comments. There's a couple of names that I'll have to get because I didn't catch it. So people I get to talk to this week, with being off for Christmas break as a teacher, I'll have the rest of the week to talk to these people or get with them and maybe ask some clarifying questions that they have regarding homelessness and then the police force. And then I think that's kind of it. That's all I got.
Thank you, ma'am. Kind of the same thing she went over. The staff does a good job putting reports together. I know the permitting process is tedious, and I think we've kind of streamlined that a little bit to where it's gotten considerably better over the last, few months, or last 6 months anyway. Sales tax report, still kind of trending good. The concern for me is probably inflation is about what we're up sales tax, so we're probably spending the same amount of dollars now, so we're not seeing growth like we wished we were. And hopefully some of the new commercial stuff's coming in, or new restaurants, maybe we'll see an upward trend of that. Big thing that I'm excited about is, for years, the lack of maintenance on facilities, and you can't just wake up next week and go, okay, we need to put a roof on that. We should have been planning on it for years. So the asset management and capital improvements and just the putting that in motion will help us long term, which we should have been doing that years ago, not now. Because we're paying for it with wastewater, water treatment plant. We should have been planning on this 20 years ago. So to me, that's a huge improvement. It'll be painful, funding it. Wish everybody a safe Christmas. The temperature's fixing to drop dramatically over the next few days. So, the homeless, definitely a concern. I'm sure we'll open up additional beds and stuff for those. That's about all I got.
Thank you, sir.
You copy my work when you, I appreciate it. I appreciate that. I want to thank the staff for the preparation of the agenda and all the work that goes into that. The administrative reports tonight were just that very informative, and I could understand what they said, simple, to the point. I like those. What Mark said on the budget, on the tax, I wish I felt like that was growth, but I really feel like that's pretty flat, but at least we're under budget, so that's a good sign. That means you guys did a great job preparing our budget. Shop local, a few more days left. Probably just a couple of days left in reality, because I've heard rumor that it may get cold Thursday, Friday, so everyone be prepared for that, and stay safe. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. See you next year.
Yeah.
As always, thank you to staff for your amazing hard work and continued diligence whenever it comes to the questions and then doing your jobs well. Speaking on the expected really cold temperatures, do we have an emergency number that we could either post or share tonight for something to do with a water line breakage or power down citywide, something like that? Just, I know that sometimes it's difficult whenever you look up and there's water shooting out of the ground, or you know, like that, to kind of scroll through and like in a panic, you know. And so just to be as proactive as we can, what would the best number?
The plant,
yes.
water plant at
Mm-hmm.
405-273-0890, or the non-emergency dispatch line.
For PD?
Yes.
Okay, so either one of those. So so that was 405-273-0890?
Yes.
And that is the
That's
plant?
the water plant.
Okay, all right. And then for after hours, it probably would be, it would be better to get.
The water plant's 24/7.
Okay, very good.
Now, they may be out checking the pump or something. so,
Right, okay,
leave a message or call 2121.
okay. So 273-2121 is non-emergency. Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. I know those are, I hope we don't have to use those, but the quicker we get to some of these things, the better. Thank you, sir. It's exciting to see the possibility of new housing additions coming into areas on both right in the kind of the heart of what we would consider a lot of growth in Shawnee, and then also right on the outside of it, which will be based on other conversations. A lot of growth going on in our city in a few years. We talked about the expected growth and the need to plan accordingly with our sewer, water, roads, and wastewater, and I don't think we could outguess how many new homes and new families that we're going to have, and it's really exciting to see that coming to be. And then also too, I understand the struggle with planning a budget based on expected fuel costs. Whenever diesel's up above $5 a gallon, it doesn't take long to ruin your budget. Just ask me and my wife. I promise you, it gets sticky in a hurry. So I know that there are a lot of amazing things going on in our community. A lot of really good families working hard to do good things and make the world a better place. I'm very thankful for those families. I'm very thankful for the extra folks we're seeing downtown. I hang out downtown a lot, and seen a pretty significant uptake in people look like they're shopping and being part of the downtown experience, and that's really exciting. I was thankful for the number of families that came out and business owners that spoke during the city coming back down to the library and speaking with those, and thank you all to staff for addressing those concerns and looking to build new pathways and bridges to the solutions for our city. And also too, and I don't know what the proper proper protocol for this would be, and I know that we've talked about it, and there's several of us in agreement that it needs to be looked into and have conversations about how this could be. But I know that specific ward voting is something that has been a topic for a while, and just being able to have a conversation on where that might be and what the steps were to either agree or disagree with that being the proper way forward, and then how we might have some more in specific intentional conversations to that fact. And yes, thank you all. Merry Christmas, and all of the things. Be safe. Don't forget to love on your families, and thank you very much for allowing me to be up here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you to staff for all of the reports. They're always so concise and informative, and I learned quite a bit each time. Thank you also to the staff that put together, I guess everyone was there, all the department heads, the downtown merchant meeting recently. I was really excited. Chief kind of gave us a sneak peek into what he mentioned today about the collaborations and the grants being used towards some of the mental health training, and I think that that's a great step forward for officers to have those resources. I think that meeting was run so well and gave so much information to people about the homeless situation, things that are being done as far as code enforcement and things like that. And as a downtown business owner, I really appreciate all the effort that's gone in towards the advancement of that area. Even though it's not my ward, it is where I have my business. So with the running the risk of this being used against me, Mr. Morris, I realize that the theatrics of some of your comments tonight are meant to get a rise out of me, get a rise out of us. I have been very proud of the businesses that I've owned, and I have never tried to hide those. I've been very forthcoming with those. This particular document was something that we all learned about just recently, that there was a financial disclosure that had never been given to us when we applied for office, wasn't given to us after we were sworn, and it was just simply something I never knew existed. And none of us did either up here. The people that have been here for years didn't know, and I was brand new. So I'll also say this, keeping in mind the history that you've had of singling me out and bordering on harassment, trying to find information about me. Before I was elected, so we can get this on the record, Mr. Morris went to my attorney's office demanding to know information about me. He went to my banker's office demanding to know information about me. This was previous to any of these financial statements being requested, which was recently. That was part of my hesitation for filling this out just kind of willy-nilly like I would have normally if I'd just been presented with it the second that I was given the document up front, like I filled out everything else as an elected official had to at that moment. My hesitation was those actions made me so nervous that I contacted the police department at that time. I do not respond well to bullying. Most of the things that you mentioned today were so untrue, and most of the truth that was in them, if you actually did know the names of some of the businesses, which I'm not trying to hide. I have a completed financial document. I just wanted to make sure, because of your past actions, it was done completely, accurately, and it would be something that I wouldn't have to add to later and get criticized for if I forgot something. So some of those things were public record because I had already made them public record, because I had listed out all the businesses that I owned and some of my investments in our city to advocate for us to remain in CD5. That letter and document became public record at that time, and I was one of many public officials and city leaders that did that. My intention with that, knowing that it was public record, was to use my influence to make sure that we could keep receiving the federal money and the attention that I thought that we would continue to receive if we remained in CD5. And I was one of many people in the community that did that. So since we just learned about this recently, given the history of the communication, given the fact that I even before I was requesting these documents, I spoke to council about the things that I own, the specific properties you're mentioning. Some of them you don't understand at all. I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. You are not my legal counsel, and your interpretation of the law is often so incorrect, I'm not even sure where to start at the end of the comments. So I would just like to say I am transparent and proud of the things that I own and the way that I have invested in our community. I do not like addressing just flat out lies and conspiracy, because I think it only adds fuel to the fire. And I'm sure you're really enjoying this and you'll post it later on Facebook. But I think it's really important that someone take a stand whenever conspiracies continue and continue in this room, because it prevents good people from wanting to sit up here because they're so worried about what might be said about their families, what might be said about their businesses, what might be said about them that's totally incorrect. So the financial statement will be submitted and complete. It just took me a little bit longer, and that's why. Moving forward, if you truly want to know something, I've said repeatedly, you guys can email me. That will give me enough time to really respond to you. It's not that I'm trying to keep stuff secret, it's just that it's not always the best environment to have a 30-minute speech up here like I'm doing now to answer questions. So I am transparent. I would love to get people answers if they have any questions. I'm in full compliance with all of the codes of ethics and the laws as the city attorney has advised me. I'm sorry if you do not agree with that, but that is the facts. Those are the facts. As moving forward, I'd like to just encourage everyone to shop local, because Amazon can't save you now, but we can. So on that note, thank you for all of your support with the small businesses. There's still time to buy those presents locally. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. First, want to ask forgiveness for my couple of minutes tardiness tonight. Our two family dogs decided they would exit our premises, and our family was on a massive search. I am happy to report that the city of Shawnee is filled with amazing residents who, as soon as I got up here, started contacting us saying they'd found them and they are now home. So I apologize for being late, but all's well that ends well. So, fellas, it's time to start your Christmas shopping. And, as several commissioners have said, shopping local is the correct answer at this point, at all points, but especially at this point. I think the sales tax numbers are good. I think it's I share some of that, what's inflation and what's not, and I think it's trying to interpret them is still part of a mystery, but I think it's good to try to interpret them from the plus side rather than the minus side. And so those are, hopefully those trends continue as we get numbers through the holiday season. I do want to say thank you to, or recognize Corporal Lozano. I was minding my own business at a Thunder game Friday night, and she walked out on the floor and showed up on the big screen, and she was honored by the Thunder for her amazing work that she does here in the community. And so just want to recognize her and know what an amazing asset we have. And she cares for so many and cares about her department and all that she does. And so I want to make sure everyone knew the recognition she was getting and as such an important part of our department. I also want to voice my support for Chief Wilson and the entire department. We are all humans, and no human is capable of getting every human interaction with another human correct. But I've seen over time, Chief and his department of fine men and women interact with citizens, and their care for them is immense. And Chief, you and your department have my support and thanks. And I also know that Chief has a record of when we as humans make mistakes, he rights them. And I'm confident that he will get to the bottom of whatever situation we have. And I trust his judgment, and I trust the judgment of the city manager. And I have no reason to doubt, and just wanted to voice that support. Excited about the CIP, all those things going forward that will help us, I think, stay on the straight and narrow, as hard as that may be. And I think it's highlighted we're trying to function in a broken system as far as infrastructure, and this will guide our thoughts going forward. Policy is good, and it safeguards our future. Let's see, I had a couple others. I mean, just in regard to the financial disclosure, I think one thing that's not on there is that I have to list every person named Matthews in the city of Shawnee and how I'm related to them. That's in no way, I think all of us up here are open books. If you believe that there's a conflict, I'd love for you to say, hey, I'm concerned. I'll give you an answer. Matthews Rental Corporation, which was brought up, is super easy to Google. Unfortunately, the previous owner passed away. For those of you that think there'd be a conflict, there's an obituary that provides an entire obituary of who's related to that company, and it ain't me. And I'm confident and comfortable with my disclosures and responsibilities going forward. Merry Christmas to all the wonderful people here in our community, whether they be on staff up here or throughout our community. We're blessed to live in a community full of amazing people, as me and my family have witnessed tonight. And so hope that you and your families are surrounded by those that care for you, and have the opportunity to love each other. And hope everyone has a safe holiday. It's going to be cold. Let's look out for one another as we go forward, and we'll see everybody next year.
Thank you, sir. I won't have a whole lot. You guys have covered a lot of ground. I do want to brag on staff like everybody else did. You guys are doing an amazing job for us. The admin reports were very informative, and hopefully folks are going to either watch those online or use the links that Lauren alluded to earlier, which I was glad to see that those exist and make it easy for people to look up information now. Our budget report and sales tax report were good. We'd much rather have that than what a lot of places are experiencing. That's for sure. I mean, we have a worldwide financial crisis at the moment, and we always want numbers to be better, but considering the state of affairs worldwide, I think we're doing pretty good. So as some folks pointed out tonight, Amazon can't save you now, so be sure any more shopping you need to do that here locally. We have a warming center, and I want to make sure I point that out. That's going to be, is it Thursday, Friday, Saturday? Do we know when? Or is it, I think it starts Thursday.
We're watching the temperature, so
Yeah.
it will be triggered by the temperature.
Yeah, which they don't look good.
They don't.
No, they don't look good at all. So everybody, please try to stay warm. I know Erica is looking for volunteers. My wife and I have volunteered to do shifts down there. You can reach her at erica.genty@shawneeok.org, or you can text her at 405-287-1777. And hopefully, I have no doubt, I know these were very successful last year when we did these. It's going to be extremely cold, And we definitely want to get people out of the cold if we can. So I don't have a whole lot to talk about on the financial thing. I mean, I'll tell you right now what I own. I own my house. I've been retired for 14 years. I couldn't care less if I sold another photograph. In fact, I've disbanded that company. If I want to give my photos to anybody I choose, I can legally do that. And the ones you see at the visitor center, I gave those to them. They cost me hundreds of dollars to get prints that size printed, and I gave those to them. I do not have my drone license anymore. I don't do that for a living. Couldn't care less. So hopefully that answers your questions. You know, we have nothing to hide up here. Nothing. So now you have your answers. All righty. I think with that we will adjourn and we will move on to the Airport Authority. Item 1, consider approval of consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Aaron and Daniel. We have a motion and a second for approval of item 1. We'll call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 2 is new business.
No new business.
Thank you, ma'am. We are adjourned. We'll move on to Municipal Authority. Item 1 is the consent agenda. Anything there?
Move to approve.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'll second.
Tammy and Travis. All righty, we have a motion and a second for approval. We'll call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 2, consideration of the purchase of 5 vehicles from Carter Chevrolet Agency under state contract pricing in the total amount of $283,424. Mr. Schmidt, boy, you were fast. You got up there quick. All yours, sir.
So this consideration of purchase for the 5 vehicles would bring us almost to the over $400,000 that we requested in the for this budget that we were unable to fund at that time. But for the public works vehicles as a whole, I requested over $2 million in the budget, of which I was approved for $240,000, which we have spent. When staff called to check on a truck that we had been on the list for some time due to everything that's going on, Carter Chevrolet said that we have these vehicles that are available. They were ordered and not picked up, or not, they were pre-ordered but not finalized. So I reached out to city manager's office and finance, and they were able to, the revenue supports the purchase. So that still leaves us very, very short in meeting our goal of vehicle replacement. I'd answer any questions that you have. If I have thoroughly confused you at this point.
I've got a few. Or
I'll go right ahead.
Can you walk me through what vehicles these are replacing?
So in SMA, the last, aside from 3 years ago, the last vehicle that was purchased was it was a 2012 model that was purchased in 2011. So everything aside from one vehicle is 12 plus years old. We're still looking because SMA encompasses several divisions. We're trying to prioritize and reassign vehicles to get maximum benefit out of it.
So the 3 worst, however that.
Yes.
Gotcha. Why now? Let me expound on that. I think I know the question or the answer, but we've been talking about the budgetary process $300,000 is a big amendment for vehicles. I guess my question is, we didn't budget for the vehicles. We didn't think they'd become available?
So they were
Help-
none
help-
available.
Help me get to why they weren't included in the budget. I'm trying to look at forecasting, and this is a bigger conversation you've seen as it goes on tonight. Like, how do we get more accurate? How do we anticipate better? I mean, clearly we need the vehicles, and I'm not against it, but I want us to be accurate in a budget that we present to citizens when we pass it in June or whenever, and running $300,000 things
So-
through. Just a concern. Help me and understand, which will then help the public understand.
So our budget estimates were conservative.
Okay.
Why now is this may be the last 5 vehicles that are available for the next 3 years, to be realistic.
That's fair. I think that's part of it.
And that was when the sales rep at Carter Chevrolet presented that, I was like, I'll ask, but for exactly what you said, we know where we're at on our vehicles, and where we need to be. It's not for lack of asking.
Sure.
But through that budget process, I mean, obviously it encompasses the entire city, not just Public Works.
Fair.
So we do have that. Something that we haven't had is that capital improvement or that replacement plan. So I think maybe Commissioner Seahorn or someone up here had mentioned equipment, we use it until we can't use it anymore. We are trying to get away from that with our budgeting. We are aware of that, but this is an opportunity that came up that we may not get. Even though we budget for them this next year, the next 2 or 3 years, the stock may not be there.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong, and someone else can jump in on this with their experience. I think in the past, we have a history of running stuff into the ground, but when stock or inventory is readily available, run it in the ground, go buy one. And that's how we've kind of done it in the past. So I think we're seeing we have an opportunity that we need to jump at. I mean, personally as a commissioner, and I think this would go to all staff, I'm much more comfortable budgeting money and not spending it than budgeting and then coming and asking for more on a normal business basis.
And I would, just speaking to this and from the experience of working with my father, who worked in oilfield construction for a gazillion years, and until the day he died, he did this type of work and ran these type of vehicles. And understanding the life expectancy and understanding how often looking at these numbers, even though they're high, they're better than
Sure.
they're going to be 6 months from now. I promise you.
When you look at the R&M, the repair and maintenance, those costs, they're increasing as well, because they are. I mean, the I don't know if industry standard, but in the municipality, in the public works, these types of trucks, it's an average lifespan of 5 years, and we're obviously exceeding that sometimes 3 and 4 times.
Which I think we all appreciate and all our department heads that have stretched the lifespan of so many things. And I think we want to give you the tools you need to do your jobs effectively. I'm talking more to the process. I mean, we'll let you talk. Go ahead, jump in.
I sat there.
Yeah, no, thank you.
And then I couldn't sit there no more. You may remember that when we worked on the budget, we came to you saying we have a very long list of capital improvements that are necessary, for which there's currently no budget. The public works vehicles were some of those that were prioritized as a high priority, but not as the highest priority, therefore were not included in the first budget. You may also remember that we did something very similar for the police not too long ago, where we were able to
we had only approved 2 vehicle replacements, but we knew we needed 5 vehicles to stay within the proper fleet management cycle. And so as soon as we saw that additional revenues were coming in above and beyond projections, which is very similar in this particular case, we were able to bring those additional vehicles forward. So they were thought about, they were waiting for more revenues to come in. And this was not just a case of we have the revenue, but we were also in the very fortuitous situation that there were actually vehicles available. We didn't even have to wait for a year for those to come. So those vehicles were planned. They just didn't make that very conservative budget. Now that we have a much better understanding of how the numbers are coming in above and beyond projections, that's why they are being moved forward through a budget amendment.
That's what I meant to say.
No, it's all good information. I think it's good for us, the public, everyone to understand, like, you know, and I think there's also the careful balance of, we have to replace equipment. $283,000 is not preventing us from, like, that wouldn't pay for the wastewater treatment plant. Like, we have to do both. It's a both and situation of, we have to replace lines, but we have to have the equipment that's capable of staff doing their job. And it was just a big number, and I think laying that whole picture out there of the why and the how, and it's important, I think, to citizens. I think it's important to me, because I'm maybe I just haven't burned my saddle about budget accuracy tonight. I don't know, but here we are. Thank you for your explanation.
Luke, anything else? No, guess not. So how about a motion?
Mr. Mayor, since I caused the trouble, may I make the motion to approve item 2?
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
And I'll second, sir.
All righty. We have a motion and a second for approval of item 2. So we will call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 3, consideration of budget amendment for fiscal year 2022-2023 for Fund 501, Shawnee Municipal Fund, to fund the purchase of 5 vehicles from a state contract for the Water Distribution Division funded by water sales exceeding budget estimates. And Ms. McNabb Fox is up one more time.
Yes, sir. So like you said, this is a budget amendment totaling $283,424 for the Shawnee Municipal Authority Fund. This budget amendment is for the previously approved item to purchase the 5 vehicles. This additional appropriation will be funded by water sales that are exceeding budget estimates.
Okay. Questions? Pretty well what we just talked about. How about a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 3. We will call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 4 is new business.
No new business, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. We are adjourned. It's time to go home. Thank you very much. Everybody stay warm. Have a Merry Christmas.